All right. So this month we're celebrating the living spirit. The living spirit is the theme for this month. And that's also the title of this talk, The Living Spirit. And one of the things in the statement of what we believe that is something that Ernest Holmes, who founded the Science of Mind and Spirit back in the early 20th century, wrote a list of things. They asked him, what do you believe in? And the first thing he said is, we believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty. We believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty. What that really means is we believe in life. The living Spirit Almighty is life. Life everywhere. That invisible something that created everything, and everything's created from it, and it is in it. We say that there's just one thing happening here. One thing happening here, and it's God, Spirit, divine intelligence, infinite love, unfolding, manifesting itself through its creation. And its creation has free will. So it can have the freedom to use or abuse this power that it has been given, because it is said that we are made in the image and likeness of this God essence, and that essence is that our thought is creative, and that our thought creates our reality. And so we are co-creators using this same energetic field that exists everywhere for constructive or destructive purposes. We get to decide. We get to decide. And I know as a result of the previous election results, a lot of people are sort of being moved beyond whatever their feelings were after that election to action. People are being moved to take more responsibility for participating in this process we call democracy. That it only works if we all work it. And so I think it's a positive thing that people are being inspired to be involved in a greater way, to see the world as we want to see it. Ernest Holmes also said, if we think we can guide our brother aright while our own feet still walk in darkness, we are mistaken. We must first clarify our own vision. Then we shall become as lights, lighting the way for others. So if we're walking in darkness, we cannot say, hey, you're dark. No. If we're all in the dark, we're all just stumbling around. So we have to clarify our own vision. So our book for this month is something that's helping me to clarify my vision. It's called The Global Heart Awakens by Anodea Judith. And the subtitle of this talk, of this book, is Humanity's Rite of Passage from the Love of Power to the Power of Love. Our rite of passage from the love of power to the power of love. So it's funny that Dave said, weren't we all about love in the 60s? Yes, well, she says we have a little case of arrested development. That actually culturally we are in our adolescence. And that, these periods of us, just like a child growing up, we have all of these different phases. So the earth and humanity has had different phases, and they might go on for thousands of years, especially in the case of humanity. For the case of the earth, of course, it's been billions of years, and then there's us, and then we're around for hundreds of thousands of years, perhaps. And, and obviously we have been evolving, but it's a slow process. But the thing is, now we are conscious of our participation in it. That we're not just victims of evolution, we are participants in our own evolution because we have an opportunity to expand our own consciousness as part of this reality, to clarify our vision, to see what it is we really want. We all know, we can all, have bitch sessions all day long about what's wrong, right? We can all, awfulizing, we can do that all day long. However, what do we want? How does it look? How does it feel? How do we take the first step in that direction? How do we get there? One of the first quotes she has is from Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist. And this person who wrote this book, Anodea Judith, is a historian, a mythologist, a psychologist, a philosopher, and a teacher. So that's a pretty broad range of stuff that she's good at. And she quotes the mythologist, Joseph Campbell: "The only myth that is going to be worth talking about in the immediate future is one that will be exactly what all myths have dealt with: the maturation of the individual from dependency through adulthood, through maturity, and then to the exit. And then how to relate this society to the world of nature and the cosmos. How to relate this society to the world of nature and the cosmos." So we have to really realize that we're not separate from nature. We're part of nature. And nature has cycles, and nature goes through changes, and we are in cycles and changes ourselves. And so we need to understand the rhythm of this earth, this rhythm of the cosmos, and get in tune with it in order to realize our part in it, in this evolutionary step that we're being invited to take. The song said, we're the ones we've been waiting for, the ones who are going to consciously realize that are steps we can take to expand our own conscious awareness and get in touch with something that's already moving in a certain direction. So there is a something that is already moving. And the question is, are we going to get on board, or are we going to resist? Are we going to fight it? Like the Hopi Indian myth I told you about last week, where they had this future prediction where they said, the stream is flowing very fast and a lot of people are going to be clinging to the shore, and the ones who cling to the shore are going to suffer. The ones who let go should go to the middle of the river, see who else is there, and celebrate. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to flow to the middle of the river, and we're going to see who's there, and we are going to celebrate with them that we're moving with the flow. We're moving with the flow. So what does that mean? She says, Anodea Judith says, that in the theater of the world, we are simultaneously the audience and the cast, playing to an instantaneous feedback system that continuously shows us our reflection. A feedback system that continuously shows us our reflection. So, as we are kind and loving and connecting and supporting, we see more of that in the world because we're creating that atmosphere around us. But as we're awfulizing and judging and, doing that kind of stuff, then we get to see more and more of that in the world. And every time we see something, we say, every time we get that kind of energy going, we're propagating more of that energy on the planet. Now, it doesn't say that you can't say something is wrong, that it looks like that might be something that is not healthy or constructive or whatever. But when I was back in the corporate world, they said, okay, if you see something wrong, come with 3 suggestions about what to do about that wrong thing. Now, one of those suggestions could always be do nothing, but then you had to come up with 2 other things. So it's like, oh, I have to think about what we can do about it? I can't just complain about it and let you do something about it? No, I have to come up with 2 things, at least, that I could figure out how to solve this problem. Okay, that's calling on my creativity. Now she says the global heart's awakening occurs as each of us opens to the power of love and joins together in the creation of our future. We join together in the power of love and the creation of our future. She says, physically, the heart is an organ that keeps us alive through a network of cells that beat together. Spiritually, the heart is the center of love, the primordial force that unites us and makes our lives worth living. Globally, the heart symbolizes a new organizing principle for humanity. A new organizing principle for humanity. She said that the enormous challenges that we're facing stimulate the birth of a new era, a time when the best and worst of humanity plays their part in the fate of human evolution. And we certainly are seeing the best and the worst of humanity playing their part in this evolutionary process right now. Everybody's out in the open doing what they do, and we can see what is going to happen. We're looking at what can happen now. So she says, if future generations are alive to tell this story, it is because the best of humanity pulled together with a love so profound that the seemingly impossible was achieved. That the best of humanity pulled together with a love so profound that the seemingly impossible was achieved. She says, this drama is a love story on the grandest scale, not an adolescent tale of romantic projection and happily ever after fantasy, but a tale of how to live from our hearts, co-creating a world run by what we love more than what we fear. Connection more than separation, collaboration more than competition, embracing mystery as much as certainty. It is a story that looks at love not as a mere sentiment, but as a profound social organizing principle, indeed the self-organizing principle that mirrors the myriad relationships within nature's web of life. When this principle of love is truly understood and applied, miracles are possible. Miracles are possible. And of course, Ernest Holmes says, a miracle is just something natural we haven't understood yet. So she says, evolution is a story of things getting into larger and larger groups. So we see that, we had single-celled bacteria. And it turned out that these single-cell bacteria initially just produced oxygen as a byproduct. They produced oxygen. And after a long period of time, there was too much oxygen on the planet. And so things were starting to die off because they were getting the oxygen overload. So what they did was the cells got together and they combined, and when they got together and they combined, they created a nucleus, and they created something that could not only ingest the oxygen, but exhale carbon dioxide, which helped to diminish the oxygen level, which brought it into balance. But they did that by combining together. These bacteria said, whoa, we don't want to die. We're going to get together and see what we can do. And they all got together and they figured out a way to do it. And so that led to multicellular organisms and led to plants and fish animals, birds, and eventually us. So combining more and more. And so with us, we originally were in tribes, right? So we were in clans maybe. So we were in a clan, family clan, and then we got into a tribe of clans that united. And then there were fiefdoms and baronies and things of that nature. And then there were countries. So we were always identifying and defending our tribe or our clan or our country. Well, now is the time where we're called to defend the planet. We are called to defend the planet and all of the beings on the planet. That is our call now. We are being called to ever and ever greater combinations. Now, and the thing is, we have this wonderful gift called the internet. And of course, like everything else, it can be used for good or for evil, whatever we call evil, but things that are destructive rather than constructive. And so, but it is a great way of connecting with people all over the world. I was a part of a meeting talking about someone starting a new church, and it's going to be an online church. And they said, okay, well, they'd have 166 people in their first foundations class because it's going to be an online class. I had 5 people in my class. So we have an opportunity to create something entirely different, getting around to a lot more people to talk about unity, oneness, love, connection, all of that good stuff. So she says, culturally we're in our adolescence, and just as adolescence ends with the end of physical growth, she said the planet, humanity, is at the end of its adolescence and can't support any more growth. We are at our max in terms of growth, in terms of the biosphere being able to support all of us. So it's time for us to grow up and start getting into adulthood. And as always, in a task of initiation, which is something in indigenous tribes where they have an initiation where someone goes from being an adolescent to an adult. In that process, there is no help from the elders. You have to figure out the problems on your own. You have to come to trust in your own inner authority. And that is where we are as well, that we are being invited to trust our own inner authority, to connect with that voice within us that really guides us to that which serves the highest good for ourselves and others. So she says, the time is now to awaken the divinity within as an internal resource through practices that open a direct connection to higher and deeper states of consciousness. And so we'll be talking more about that in the weeks to come. But we are being called to really look at our civilization in a new way. And she, being a therapist, she said she started looking at Western civilization like it was a therapy client. And she said, it wouldn't take long to recognize many of the traits of a client in crisis: a rapidly deteriorating home environment, mounting debt, health issues, increasing drug use, violence, instability, and alienation. We would see a masculine psyche largely in denial of its feminine, an inflated ego in denial of its shadow, and an addiction to power in denial of its costs. Worst of all, we would see a client with suicidal tendencies and the means to carry them out. A dire situation, indeed. So that gives us a different perspective, doesn't it? she'll look at this as like, okay, where's our therapist? But she's also an expert and has written books on the chakras. And so, which for those of you who may not be familiar with the chakras, it's, a Eastern philosophical discussion about energy centers in the body. And there are different philosophies that have different numbers of chakras, but she's working with the 7 chakras. So there's 3 above, 3 below, and then there's the heart. And she says, okay, now is the time for the heart to integrate these upper and lower chakras. And the upper, she says, as a culture, as a culture, we're moving away from a culture largely organized around the 3rd chakra, which is the solar plexus, the power. We're power tripping. Associated with power and ego-based consciousness. Our survival depends on moving to the heart, which is characterized by an integration of polarities, balance of gender, hyper-connectedness among its parts, and the qualities of empathy, compassion, relatedness, and peace. So I don't know, a couple of weeks ago I had done a talk and I talked about the safety pin. Well, yesterday I got a copy of something, and now they call it the Stand By Me pin. And it's got a little peace sign on it. And it says, Stand By Me. It says, if you wear a hijab, I'll sit with you on the train. If you're trans, I'll go to the bathroom with you. If you're a person of color, I'll stand with you if the cops try to stop you. If you're a person with disabilities, I'll hand you my megaphone. If you're an immigrant, I'll help you find resources. If you're a survivor, I'll believe you. If you're a refugee, I'll make sure you're welcome. If you're a veteran, I'll take up your fight. If you're LGBTQ, I won't let anybody tell you you're broken. If you're a woman, I'll make sure you get home okay. If you're tired, me too. If you need a hug, I've got an infinite supply. If you need me, I'll be with you. All I ask is that you be with me too. So there was a story told about a woman who was wearing this pin, and she was in a grocery store, and a woman in a hijab came up to her, and I think she was somewhere like in the Midwest or something. She was wearing this pin, and a woman in a hijab came up to her in the grocery store, and she said, would you mind if I asked you a question? And she said, no, not at all. And she said, how do I make a turkey? How do I make stuffing? And so they had a really great, long conversation with a woman she would never have thought about talking to or anything. And here they had this great conversation because she could tell her how to make a turkey. So she was, so this gave an opening for connection. It's about connection. It's about saying, yeah, I'll stand by you. I'll stand by you. She says, Anna Judith says, the only way to heal our divided world is by embracing the full spectrum of human consciousness. This involves developing the upper chakras, which are the realms of communication, vision, and spirituality, and integrating with the lower chakras of body, emotions, and personal power. So we're integrating in the heart. So it's about personal and global awakening. And for those of you who are Ken Wilber fans or Spiral Dynamics fans, who like to see the charts about where things are and where we are in those things, she has got the charts. She's got the charts. She's in that. But she said the premise of this book is that evolution is God's way of making more gods. Evolution is God's way of making more gods. But what we need is the guiding vision to give us something to move towards instead of something to move away from. something that pulls us. She talks about entelechy. Entelechy being this internal something that guides us, that invites us into our own realization of where we fit in the overall spectrum of things. Developing our own personal potential. And so there is a great quote also by Thomas Jefferson, who says, "It is not power that corrupts, but fear. Fear of losing power corrupts those who wield it, and fear of the scourge of power corrupts those who are subject to it." So, it's about fear of losing power or fear of what somebody's going to do when they get into power, right? A lot of people are in that place right now. Okay, but, things are shifting. In Gambia this week, which is an African country, and as we know, African countries have had some difficulties in establishing democracies and having transitions of power that are flowing and easy and all of that good stuff. So there was an election, and the authoritarian president for the last 22 years was defeated in an election. His name was Yahya Jammeh. And he was defeated, and that was a big surprise, because usually, it's like, you better vote for me, but he got defeated. And not only did he get defeated, he said he would step down. And not only did he say he would step down, he said he would assist the new leader in his transition. They have not had a smooth transition of power since 1965. And this man took power 22 years ago through a coup. So we have an election, and there actually is going to be a smooth transition to the new president. So there are shifts occurring. There is that maturation. There is that movement from adolescence to adulthood. Yippee! Yippee! So, all right. I have to tell you a couple of things more about, sorry, I'm talking too long, but okay. Love as an organizing principle. Here's some things about love as an organizing principle. Love as the grace that holds things in relationship, as a force that arranges constituent parts into a coherent whole. That organizes constituent parts into a coherent whole. Love is a principle of exchange or perpetual reciprocity. Everything gives and receives in a kind of perpetual balance that maintains the whole. Love as a principle of caring, taking responsibility for the well-being of ourselves, another person, a group, or anything outside of ourselves, or the rainforest, the elephants, the polar bears, whatever it is, that outside of ourselves we have that call to service, to charity, to altruism. This is the principle of caring. And then love as entelechy, that inner realization, the vital principle that guides us to develop and function as an organism, to realize we're all constituent parts, and to get together with our other constituent parts and form new entities, new ideas, and new ways of moving forward. New ideas are coming to us now. And then love as a universal field in which we are all enveloped. Love is a universal field, an energy field that we are all enveloped in, that is moving forward, that is inviting us each to experience more, and we're being invited to join in, to realize, to recognize, to settle in, to rest in, and to be informed by this energy, by this field of intelligence, to move forward and achieve something beautiful and different and entirely new, but proceeding out of what has come before. So, the living Spirit Almighty, God is at work in this energy, in this field, in us. So let us say our affirmation together. I think it's on page 2. I am one with the living Spirit of life itself. I am one with the living Spirit of life itself. I am one with the living Spirit of life itself. I am one with the living Spirit of life itself. And so it is. All right. Let's stand for our congregational song.
All right. We have an old traditional revival meeting kind of song here. Two, three, four. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Spirit. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Spirit. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Walking and talking with my mind stayed on Spirit. Walking and talking with my mind stayed on Spirit. Walking, talking with my mind stayed on Spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. You can't hate your neighbor, can't hate your neighbor in the mind. Stayed on Spirit. Can't hate your neighbor in your mind. Stayed on Spirit. You can't hate your neighbor in your mind. Stayed on Spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Love everybody in your heart. Stayed on Spirit. Love everybody in your heart. Stayed on Spirit. Love everybody in your heart. Stayed on Spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Spirit. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Spirit. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Spirit. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. All right.
Thank you so much, Jeff Wright, Jill and John Fox, and Julie Chirelli. Thank you so much. All right. So now is the time for our conscious contribution, where we give for what we have received, and we always begin that with our thanksgiving for all of the people who contributed to making this service possible. So I want to thank my announcer, Dave Clark. I want to thank my practitioner, Reverend Madeline Wade. Thank you so much. Thank you to Kathleen Medley for doing childcare today, and Linda Horning for being on the projector. Thank you very much. And thank you to John Fox for making the slides, and to Ann Deeden and Lita Stone for being in the bookstore, and for Ike Moore for counting the offerings. Thank you, Ike. And thank you to Cree for bringing the flowers today. Thank you so much. And Frank Rander for the sound and the lights and his belt, which I borrowed so I could put the microphone on it. Okay. Yes. David Frappia, of course, for making our coffee this morning. And I've also got the mulled apple juice out there for those who are interested in helping with the with the decorations. And I want to thank Nancy Zeisler, Dave Clark, Gloria Riley, and I don't see Rich. Did Rich come today? Okay, all right. So thank you to Nancy and Dave and Gloria for serving today, and for our musicians for their wonderful music today. And thank you to all of you for, as I said, getting up on a very dark morning and getting out here in the cold and coming here. Thank you so much. All
Also,
right.
I'd like to,
Yes.
there was one musician missing.
Yes, Juanita.
Prayer for Juanita, who was supposed to be here to sing with us today, but
Yeah.
got the flu or the cold or something.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, well, let's know that she's whole, perfect, and complete, regardless of the appearances in this moment. And we also know that for Mari Kobus, who had her surgery this week. So just knowing her wholeness, because she's had a few challenges in her recovery. So just hold her, knowing her wholeness together, okay? We hold our gifts over our hearts as we say together, I give this gift with love and joy from a consciousness of abundance. Divine love blesses and prospers all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is.